I'm going to demonstrate the difference between shape tweening and motion tweening in Adobe Flash CS6. So I've just done a file new here and I get these options. I'm going to create an ActionScript 3 workspace, and I'm going to use the rectangle tool here to draw a rectangle in frame 1. With the rectangle tool selected, if I go down here I can see that this button isn't highlighted, which means I'm not in object drawing mode, which in turn means that I'm in merge drawing mode. And that means that the outline and the fill are essentially separate. So when I move the fill, the outline remains. I'm going to undo that because I want them to move together. I can move them together by double clicking. And that's what I'll do now in a moment. So I'm in frame 1 there. I want to extend my rectangle for another, say, 20 frames. So I click on frame 20 and I hit the shortcut key F5, which extends my animation for the next 20 frames and extends the rectangle object, or I should call it a shape, I suppose. In frame 20, I'm going to hit key F6, which will convert that frame to a keyframe. So the very first frame has a dot in it. It was a keyframe by default. I'm now in frame 20 and I've inserted a keyframe there. That allows me to move my rectangle or change its shape. So we typically use keyframes to mark where an object has changed shape, color, size, orientation, and so on. So I'm just going to double click at this time to make sure that it all moves together and drag it across a little bit. So it's moved over to there. And I'm now going to, well, actually let's demo that. Back in frame 19 it's in the first position, so it's in that initial position for the first 19 frames, and then it suddenly jumps over in position 20. So I'd like a more gradual transition, and I could do that by repeatedly drawing the rectangle and shifting it a tiny little bit each time. That's a bit tedious, so I just draw it in frame 1, draw its new position in frame 20, and I get Flash to do the rest of the work for me by inserting what we call a motion tween. So I'm going to right click anywhere between my two keyframes and I'm going to create a motion tween. Okay, I got to convert it to symbol. So what I'll do is, instead of the motion tween, I'll just go back into that menu and you can see create a classic tween. Classic tween is essentially a motion tween as well. So let's go with that for the purposes of this video. Okay, so I've created my classic tween, which is another form of motion tween. And you can see now that I get a nice smooth movement from frame 1 to frame 20. And that's what we call motion tweening, or technically classic tweening on this occasion, but it is essentially a motion tween. And the word tween comes from in between, where Flash has inserted the in-between frames necessary to create a smooth transition from my position in frame 1 to my final position in frame 20. So that's motion tweening. Okay, let's take a look at shape tweening. So I'm going to create a new workspace here. Again, I'll pick an ActionScript 3. I could have created a second layer on the other document, but just to keep it separate, maybe to help make it clearer. So once again, I'm going to insert, I'm going to use the rectangle tool here, and I'll draw a rectangle here. And I'll extend it for maybe the first, let's say, 15 frames. Again, I'll use key F5 to extend my animation for 15 frames instead of just 1. You can see the original keyframe there. I'm now going to go to the I'm going to highlight the 16th frame. There's nothing there yet, even though we're still seeing the rectangle. That's because the time scrubber is on frame 15. So I can't move it to frame 16 because it's not defined yet. However, I can highlight the not yet created frame 16 in the timeline. And if I hit key F7, that installs, or inserts, I should say, a new blank keyframe. So frame 15, I've got my rectangle. I have a blank keyframe in frame 16. And I'm going to create an alternative shape here, because I'm going to demonstrate shape tweening. So instead of a rectangle, I'm going to insert a star. So I use the polystar tool there, and with that tool you've got to go down here and check, is it giving you a star or a polygon. It's conveniently in the star position for me, and also conveniently it's got 4 sides, which is what I want for the purposes of this demo. So I'm now going to create a 4-sided star. I'll put it like that, and again I will double click it to move everything, maybe move it to here, and if we see what we've got there, we've got a rectangle that suddenly becomes a star. So I might like it to gradually change from a rectangle into a star. So this time I can't use a motion tween for this, because it's more than just motion, it's a shape tween. It's a change of shape. So I'm going to right click anywhere between the 2 keyframes, and in my menu here I'm going to create a shape tween. Okay, so now it kind of does a gradual transition from the rectangle into the star. Okay, so if you watch the corners there, the top left corner becomes the top left of the star, the top right becomes the top right of the star, and so on. Let's say for some reason I wanted the top left corner of my rectangle to become the top center of my star, and the top right of my rectangle to become the top right of my star, and so on. Let's try that. So let's imagine for some reason I wanted to do that. I can use a shape hint to achieve that. So with my triangle here, I right click on it and I go to, what do I go to? Actually, is it modify? It's under the modify command, and it's transform group, where the hell is it? Shape, sorry, it's under modify shape, add a shape hint. And little circle, red circle here with the letter A appears on it. I can do that again. I'll do it one more time and then I'll use the shortcut. If I go into that again, I see modify shape and add a shape hint, and the shortcut is Control-Shift-H on Windows. So I've now got a second shape hint B that's sitting on top of A. We'll see what we do with the shape hints in a moment. I'm just going to create 2 more for the other 2 corners. I'm going to put 1 shape hint on each corner. So I think it was Control-Shift, was it? Control-Shift-H, I'll know in a second. Yeah, so that's added a 3rd one labeled C, Control-Shift-H, and a 4th one labeled D. So I'll put D down in this corner, I'll put C in this corner, I'll put B in the top right corner, and I will put the A shape hint in the top left corner. And the idea is when I move to the new shape, I can position these shape hints where I want them to be, where I want these points to be in my new shape. And I've said I want this one, for example, to be the center top, this one to be the center right, as opposed to the points of the star, which it was defaulting to. So let me go over to my star shape, and shape hint D, which was my last one, I want it to be the center left. I want the shape hint C to be the center bottom, shape hint B to be the center right, shape hint A, which was the top left of the rectangle, I want that now to be the center top of the star. This was the top right, shape hint B was the top right of the rectangle, I want it here, and so on. So let's see, will that work? It may not work, and if it doesn't, we'll have to add some more shape hints. So I'll scrub my timeline and see. There's my rectangle, and the top, I'm watching the top left corner A there. Let's see where that ends up. It goes in a little bit, and it does in fact end up in the center. Don't particularly like the way it changes shape there. Well, actually, it's okay. We'll leave it at that. So I can see that I've achieved what I wanted to do there. With the shape hints, this corner becomes the top center of the star. This corner becomes the center right of the star, and so on. So just to replay that again, just to show it, if you maybe watch the top right this time, it should end up in the center right of the star. So let's see that, and it does, albeit with a slightly funny transformation. And that's essentially the difference between shape tweening and motion tweening. Shape tweening is changing shapes. Once we're changing shapes, we can, if we don't like the way the shape changes, and sometimes it does a very funny intermediate shape, or we wanted to change in a slightly different way, like I did there. I wanted the corners of the rectangle to become the center points of the star rather than the points of the star. I can use shape hints, and that's what shape hints are for. And then just back at the start of the video, we showed motion tweening, where we're not changing the shape, we're changing the shape's position, and we use a motion tween for that. And in both cases, the idea is that Flash inserts in between frames for you. So instead of having to draw loads and loads of intermediate frames to gradually go from one shape to the other, Flash does it for us. It essentially adds the intervening frames.